The story begins around the release of Justice League. At that time, many people, critics, and so-called intellectuals were calling Ben Affleck a fat Batman. Now honestly, this thought never really crossed my mind, but if we compare Affleck's Batman with the previous ones like Christian Bale's Batman, there's clearly a difference. Compared to Bale, Affleck's Batman looks bulkier, heavier, and overall more solid. And it makes sense because in Batman v Superman, Affleck had to stand toe-to-toe with Superman. Naturally, to look convincing opposite someone like Superman, he needed a body that could match that level mentally and physically, and Zack Snyder didn't leave any doubt in showing us that. He gave us full workout sequences of Batman, proving how intensely Bruce Wayne trained for months to prepare for that battle. Honestly, I can't even imagine Christian Bale's Batman standing against Superman. It just wouldn't look right. But when we see Affleck's Batman facing Superman, it feels believable. It feels like, yes, this is a man who can actually give the Man of Steel a tough fight. But when we saw Batman again in Justice League, he didn't feel like the same Batman anymore. Compared to his appearance in Batman v Superman, his physique looked softer, bulkier, and less sharp. In BVS, his body looked more defined, more muscular, and he gave off the aura of a warrior who could stand against Superman. You can understand this by comparing him to Frank Miller's version of Batman from the comics. That Batman wasn't exactly slim, he was muscular, rugged, and had a huge build, but also carried some bulk. And these same qualities were reflected in Ben Affleck's Batman in BVS. Even the Batman logo on his chest was wider and larger, matching his massive personality. On the other hand, Christian Bale's Batman logo was smaller and sleeker, matching his more streamlined look. Even Robert Pattinson's Batman logo reflects his slimmer, leaner physical build. But Affleck's Batman looked much heavier, because the DCEU design leaned into bulk and size. That's why his suit made his body appear even bigger, giving him a dominating presence on screen. Now, just because he looked bulkier doesn't mean it was a bad thing. In fact, the way he carried himself in Batman v Superman, especially in scenes like his first meeting with Alfred, he looked strong, commanding, and very professional. But in Justice League, it was different. Something felt off. He didn't look as intimidating or sharp as before. And there were many reasons behind that. One of them was Ben Affleck's personal struggles during that time. Reports suggested that he had already gained about 13 to 14 kilograms, around 30 pounds, after Batman v Superman. And though his body fat percentage was still relatively low, his physique wasn't maintained at the same razor-sharp level as before. The real problems started during Justice League, 2017. Because there were already reports that during reshoots, the studio forced in a lighter, more comedic tone. And due to all that chaos, Affleck's physical shape visibly changed between Snyder's original footage and Whedon's reshoots. By the time reshoots wrapped, Affleck's body no longer looked like the Dawn of Justice version. And it's understandable no one can keep their body in peak condition all the time, especially while juggling personal issues. Another thing to consider is Batman's suit itself. Superman's suit was skin-tight, so Henry Cavill's real physique was visible clearly. But Batman's suit was padded and bulky, which naturally made Affleck look even bigger on screen. On top of that, his facial features, especially with the cowl pressing on his face, made him look fuller, as if he had put on even more weight. Apart from that, there are other factors too. For example, Ben Affleck is 6 feet 4 inches, just 1 inch shorter than The Rock. At that height, even a slight change in muscle mass or weight shows dramatically on screen. And considering he was already in his mid-40s during Justice League, maintaining the same shredded physique consistently is a huge challenge. Now, talking about Batman's age in the DCEU, Zack Snyder took inspiration from Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns. In those comics, Batman is around 60 to 65 years old. Of course, showing a 60-year-old Batman in live action while still making him look like a peak athlete is tough. That's why Snyder hinted at Batman being older and more experienced, but not explicitly in his 60s. For example, in the film when Bruce visits his parents' grave, we see their death year as 1981. If Bruce was around 18 when they died, then by the time of Justice League in 2017, he would be about 44 years old. This lines up with Affleck's actual age at the time, which made his version of Batman believable as a veteran, battle-scarred hero who had been fighting crime for decades. Now, coming back to Ben Affleck himself, it's important to remember that his Batman was directly inspired by Frank Miller's gritty version, where the character is older, more brutal, and already past his prime youth. So naturally, this Batman wasn't supposed to look like a young, slim athlete, but rather a hardened, bulky warrior. Still, Affleck faced several controversies regarding his role. In an interview, he himself admitted that the main reason he accepted the role of Batman was to make his kids happy. But that reason alone wasn't enough for such a massive commitment. Because superhero franchises aren't just one film, they require years of dedication, maintaining the body, and living that persona both on and off screen. And while aging makes weight control harder, fans expected more long-term vision when you sign up for a role like Batman. But Affleck later admitted that during Justice League, his personal problems also began weighing heavily on him. He struggled with alcoholism, and his mental health wasn't in the right place. So, when his heart wasn't in the role anymore, he decided to step back from the DCEU. And that's actually the right decision, because if you can't give your full dedication to such an iconic role, it's better to walk away than do it half-heartedly. There are many actors in Hollywood who don't want to tie themselves down to multi-year superhero projects. Some prefer trying new things every time, rather than sticking to one role. Affleck was also like that. For example, he didn't even push to continue with a solo Batman movie, because he didn't feel the spark anymore. He himself admitted his personal and professional problems had become overwhelming, and when those things pile up, no matter how much you train, your body and performance will reflect the struggle. That's why his Batman looked bulkier, softer, and less sharp in Justice League. It wasn't because he was careless, but because real life caught up with him. So if we look at the bigger picture, Ben Affleck's Batman in Batman v Superman was sharp, muscular, and terrifying in presence. But by the time Justice League came around, the circumstances, both personal and production-related, made his version appear bulkier, softer, and less intimidating. Still, whatever people may say about him being the fat Batman, the truth is that Affleck gave a very unique and powerful portrayal. He showed us a Batman who was older, battle-hardened, and emotionally scarred. And honestly, he did justice to the role, despite all the struggles behind the scenes. In the end, I'd say Ben Affleck made the right choice by leaving when he did. Because when you can't give your heart to something, it's better to step away. He did what he could, he gave us a version of Batman we had never seen before, and then he moved on. So now I'd like to ask you, what do you think of Ben Affleck's Batman? Did you like his performance? Did you feel his bulkier look suited the character, or did you prefer his sharper appearance in Batman v Superman? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends.